Alright guys, in today's video we are talking about the PlayStation 5 and the next generation Xbox. More specifically, we have a third-party developer giving their opinion on the power difference between the next generation Xbox and the PlayStation 5, and what they have to say might surprise you depending on who you are and how you feel about the power difference, although I would say that most of you will not be surprised by what this developer has to say. We are also going to be highlighting an individual from The Verge, Tom Warren. He is very close to Microsoft, as far as I know anyway. He has some very interesting things to say about what he believes developers are looking forward to most when it comes to these next generation consoles. And again, the answer might surprise you. It turns out that raw GPU power in the form of the teraflop number is actually not the thing that most developers are looking forward to. Who would have thought? So we're going to go over this, and a big reason why we are going over this is because I'm sure many of you have been paying attention to some of the headlines that we've been seeing going around lately, where a former PlayStation developer is saying that the PS5 can't run massive open world games, and he actually had to come out here and clarify because unfortunately there was some misinformation being circulated around. He never said that. In fact, if you go listen to exactly what this developer had to say, he was talking about ray tracing, and he simply said that when it comes to the massive big open world third-party games, the Xbox might have better ray tracing. And considering how many compute units are in the Xbox, yeah, that's probably a safe assumption, but that's pretty much all he said. And yet you see these headlines running around where people are making it sound as though this is a former PlayStation developer. You know, he said that the Xbox is a beast, and he said that it's going to have better ray tracing. So clearly that translates into the PS5 not being able to run massive open world games. I mean, you know it's bad when he has to come out here and clarify this stuff himself. And so to kind of push back against this a little bit, I want to highlight something another developer is saying, a third-party developer, and also what Tom Warren is saying. So before we go any further, do me a favor, be sure to hit the like button to help the video out and show your support, and hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any future content. But getting into it here, it says both consoles have revealed some impressive things about their hardware so far, and both boast advantages over the other in different areas. The one area where the next generation Xbox is looking like it has the upper hand is pure raw power with, for instance, a GPU with a clock speed of 12 teraflops as opposed to the PS5's 10.3 teraflops. But how much of an effective difference will something like this make to developers in the long run? According to Marc-Andre Jutras, technical director at Cradle Games, developers of the upcoming sci-fi Souls-like action RPG Hellpoint, probably not too much. In a recent interview, when we asked Jutras about whether he thinks the aforementioned difference will have too much of an impact in the long run, he suggested that it wouldn't, since there's multiple other factors at play. To be honest, probably not, Jutras said. Previous consoles have always had this kind of difference, especially the PlayStation, which always tended to have tweaks and hardware-specific accelerations, especially with today's GPU. How are those flops used? Jutras continued. Any dedicated physics cores? What about audio processing, neural networks, and let's not get started on ray tracing. It doesn't matter if you have twice the flops but can only use half of them. Right now, that is a pretty loaded statement that he's making there, and I'm not going to run with this and say, oh, look at that, see, he's making it sound as if the 12 Tflops inside of the next generation Xbox are completely useless and will not be used. I'm not saying that, and frankly, I don't think he's trying to say that either. I think what he's really just trying to say here is that the power difference ultimately will not matter. And again, I do need to highlight that this is not some random person on the internet or some random person in the comments section. This is a third-party developer who's making a game for both consoles. Now, I don't necessarily know if they're working with the dev kits for both, but it doesn't really matter because developers are very familiar with everything and they have a very good idea of what everything inside these next-gen consoles are capable of and what they're going to be doing and offering in terms of what developers can do to utilize these different things. And he's saying it right here. He doesn't think it's going to make much of a difference. He says that it's always been this way. There have always been power differences, and the truth is, it's very rare that you see a huge difference in the long run, even when there is a power difference. And he's specifically going on to say that the flops really don't matter that much. It's not really about the flops or the flop count, I guess you could say. It's how you utilize those flops. And if there's one thing that we've been hearing a lot of developers say in a very positive way about the PS5 is how easy it is to develop for and how easy Sony has made it to really kind of take full advantage of the PlayStation 5 hardware in a very short amount of time. And that is a very critical thing when it comes to game development. So just had to highlight that. Again, there has just been so much garbage circulating around recently, just trying to basically slander the PlayStation 5 and make it seem as though if you're somebody who is looking forward to this console, you know, you're going to be getting a significantly inferior console. I literally watched a video the other day where an individual highlighted things that developers were saying about the PlayStation 5 and the next-gen Xbox, and most of the developers were saying that the things they are most excited about are the SSDs in these consoles and the CPUs and stuff like that. And we actually have something we're going to be going over here that kind of backs that up. But what's funny is they didn't really mention that, yeah, this is this PlayStation 5's strongest aspect. It's its greatest strength, that SSD. This is something that Sony has put so much into, and they didn't say anything about it. But then they mentioned the one developer from Guerrilla Games, formerly of Guerrilla Games, who mentioned the ray tracing advantage that the next generation Xbox is going to have, and then they went on to make it sound as though the next generation Xbox is just clearly a vastly superior piece of hardware. And to me, I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, are people not understanding that what developers are saying, what most developers are saying, that they're most excited for are the things that Sony is putting the most emphasis on? I don't get it. I mean, look, you're going to have developers that give their opinions, and you're going to have some developers that are more excited about compute unit count, and you're going to have other developers who are much more excited about SSDs and I/O throughput and stuff like that. I'm just going to put it on record here and say that most of the developers that I've been paying attention to, or most of the headlines that I've been seeing, it sounds to me like most developers are excited about the SSD speeds, the I/O throughput, and the CPUs. And the GPU really isn't something that is talked about all that much. Just putting that out there. But moving on to the final topic here, it has to do with Tom Warren and what he had to say. He said, for those unfamiliar, Tom Warren is the senior editor of The Verge due to, he's got to read over a lot of feedback of the systems from various developers. And it seems like they're more in line with thinking that the CPU and the SSD are the most important thing for features like FPS and crossplay. He doesn't dismiss the importance of teraflops per se, just that it may not be as important as you think. Oh, who would have thought? Crazy, right? So this is exactly what he said in his tweet. He said, I've been saying, he actually quoted himself. The tweet that he's quoting, it says, PS5 will also support ray tracing and existing PS4 games. Having ray tracing on consoles will mean game developers will start to take it seriously. A better CPU and SSD will mean more 60 FPS games on consoles and fair crossplay with PCs. 2020 is the real next gen for consoles. And so he actually responded to himself sometime later, and he says, I've been saying for a year that CPU and SSD are key for next-gen consoles, not teraflops. Developers are saying the same thing. I've also been saying Lockhart will not undermine next-gen games. So he's giving his opinion there on the Lockhart console, saying it's not going to undermine them. I guess that has yet to be seen. I mean, I'm not thinking it's going to make that big of a difference. I mean, all of Microsoft's games go to PC. You know, they're not making any games just for the Series X, and they're not going to ever, so I don't think that's really a problem. Anybody buying a Series X should not expect that hardware to be 100% fully utilized unless Microsoft announces that they will be making games just for that console alone. Okay, so getting back here, though, I digress. We have Tom Warren. Now, he's not a developer, but he works for The Verge. He talks to a lot of developers, and he's probably been talking to a lot of developers more recently, and it seems as though based off of what he is hearing, it sounds like the CPU and the SSD are the things that, developers are most excited about. And again, that SSD. I'm telling you, I've seen so many people continually try to underplay and downplay what Sony is doing with their SSD, making it sound as though it's not going to have any meaningful impact other than slightly better load times, and they are literally wrong. Now, I'm not a developer, but I'm not going to go against developers who are out here saying, yes, the SSD will make a huge difference when it comes to what we see specifically from Sony's first-party games, but even to a certain extent what we can see with third-party games. You know, the PS5 will be the faster console, and to some people that's going to matter a lot more. You know, these developers are very excited about I/O throughput, man, and that's all I've been hearing about lately. So, you know, I had to take time to highlight this because I continually see people letting me know that the PS5 is completely weak, it's not a great console at all, and it just can't even hold its own against the next generation Xbox. And I'm just like, look, you can say all you want, but we have developers out here and other individuals within the industry who talk to a lot of developers saying the literal opposite. So yeah, basically what it all comes down to, guys, is turns out Tflops really don't matter that much. In reality, it doesn't matter that much to developers. It doesn't matter that much when they're creating their games. The only time Tflops matter is when it comes to marketing, because it's an easy way to market your console. Microsoft was the one who started the whole teraflop marketing back in, I think, 2016 or 2017 with the Xbox One X, and clearly they decided to continue doing so with the next generation Xbox. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to make my console purchase based off of a Tflop count. I made that mistake once in the past and I got burned by it, and there's absolutely no way I'm going to make that mistake again. So at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about what this developer had to say about both next-gen consoles, and what do you think about Tom Warren's comments? Just let me know all your thoughts down below. I will be interested to see what you guys have to say. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it or found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.